Have you ever been in the worst place at the worst time? Little applause if you have. Welcome to what I accept as reality. My story is about 1976, when I began to learn how to deal with the worst times when they happen, and how to prevent some of them. That particular year, I had quite a few. I'm only going to share a couple and what I learned about it. One was we were going through double-digit inflation in 1976, and in Florida, one of the highest inflation rates ever heard of. I worked for an architectural firm. I enjoyed the work. We were one of the cutting design firms in Florida at the time. I also talked the partners into hiring me and actually becoming my partners in a graphics company, serving the same clients. But they went through 25 of our 67 employees, one by one, laying them off. I was number 26. One of the positive things around that time is my first wife and I had gotten a letter about our son, Jeffrey, being a high IQ, a highly academically gifted child, which I had never heard of before. Palm Beach County didn't have a single program officially. Eventually, the principal came up to me and said, I have 27 children. I have a classroom. Do you have any time? I ended up the gifted education teacher, K through 5. In the morning with the little ones, K through 2. The afternoon with the 3rd to 5th grade. Jeffrey was the 3rd grader. I had never taught consciously. I had no degrees. Those came later. But one of the problems was there were 2 of the 20-some teachers at that elementary school who didn't like me for one reason or another. I didn't have a degree, so what is he doing teaching? Well, the intent in my classroom was we would do things you would never do in the other classrooms. And boy, those kids did. One of the wildest, most intelligent children out of the 23 was a kindergartner. Keeping him still in any classroom was amazing. I started. I spent 30 hours preparing for those 2-3-hour sections. I was getting paid nothing. It didn't matter to me. The joy I got was their applause, their activity. When you're around 12 to 15 children who are all highly academic or highly creative, they really challenge you. One time they were running around the room, the younger ones, and I said, sit down. One of the girls who challenged me more often than not said, you're not sitting down. So then I learned. Teachers learn more from their students while doing a better job than the students learn, I believe. Unfortunately, one of the negative parts of that year was I left the house in order to free up activity with my wife and our 2 children. I became a weekend dad. Didn't divorce, because I didn't see it fair to the 3 of them. The next thing that was more negative was my father came and visited us. My mother had passed away a few years before. He came to visit, and he actually played with his grandsons. He went back to Michigan, where we had been living originally. He had fun with his other grandchildren. Then he invited them all to join him at Cedar Point. in Ohio, which is a great amusement park, or at least some of us think so. The day after that, he checked himself into the hospital for a colonoscopy. Now, for many men, that's normal. I've had at least 5, and I told him I'm not going to do a 6, I'm 80. I'm not going to live another 10 or 20 years. Now, 20 years from now, when I'm telling another story, I'm going to add that story. What I'm giving are just examples that happen to people. They caused them, or it was caused to them. But what I did after the experience with the gifted kids was I started taking workshops and classes at FAU in Boca Raton about how do you work with gifted children, whether they're academically gifted, socially gifted, creatively gifted, and a whole list of others that are qualified. I found it phenomenal. They challenged me. So I decided to leave my long-driven profession of architecture to become a teacher. Over the next 2 years, I started going to workshops and conferences on creative thinking, and that's where I learned how to control my life from 76 now, much better than I ever did before. One of the first workshops, the guy simply said, "What's good about it?" He would give us a challenge and then say, "Team up, and I want you to generate 24 ideas of what's good about it." I'm obsessed with that. Another one I learned at that week-long conference on creative thinking was, in what ways might we do whatever it is we're trying to do? That led me to create something I've been working on now ever since 78, is what I call creative stamps. Systems, tools and techniques, approaches, attitudes, atmosphere, methods, processes, and strategies. My strategy when I wake up in the morning is so ingrained in me, is find something funny. Unfortunately, I noticed tonight during my 8 minutes, I haven't been excessively funny. Got you to laugh.